Hey guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another episode review for last night's episode of The Walking Dead. This was the mid-season finale, 90-minute episode, Season 7, Episode 8, entitled Hearts Still Beating. Alright, so, as you guys know, we did go over this episode in a prediction video back on Thursday. If you guys want to check that out, I'll leave a link for you guys in the description below for you guys to do so. But with that being said, this episode was absolutely insane. So with that being said, okay, do not watch this episode review unless you're caught up with last night's episode of The Walking Dead, which was, again, the mid-season finale, Season 7, Episode 8, entitled Hearts Still Beating. Now, if you guys have not seen that, this is obviously going to contain spoilers. It's an episode review, you know, that's what it is. So make sure you guys just, you know, be fully aware of that before you continue. Because don't get mad at me in the comment section. Because I've had that happen before. Anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it, guys. This episode was crazy. This episode was really, really great. I loved every single second of it. You know, I really did. I thought that it was a really, really solid episode. I think that it was the best episode yet that we've had. Probably since the premiere of Season 7. This was probably the best episode yet. Now, with that being said, last episode and, you know, episode 4 and, well, just all the episodes in general, they were all really, really good. You know, they were all really well done. It's just, you know, in the past, you know, since episode 1, we've sort of always taken a specific group or, you know, a specific target in time and, you know, sort of sanction that away to one episode, right? So, like, episode 6, for example, we had Tara and Heath and nothing but them in that new community. Episode 5, I believe... What was episode 5? Episode 5 would have been the hilltop, right? Okay, and then episode 4 was obviously focused on Alexandria and their first encounter with Negan there. The cell was actually focused on Daryl and the sanctuary. And episode 2, which was the well, was obviously focused on the kingdom and Ezekiel and everything like that. And then we really started to get back into the groove of things, of having episodes be, you know, about more than one group or one place in time. Around episode 7, you know, that's when it started to do its thing with Sing Me a Song, and that was obviously focused on, you know, Rick and Aaron and Michonne and Negan and, you know, Alexandria and all these places. And, you know, I thought that was great, you know, and they continued it with episode 8 with the whole getting the group back together thing, especially at the end of the episode. You know, that was definitely an emotional moment for a lot of people, including me. I definitely like seeing it. You know, it was definitely something that I can go back and watch over and over again and still not get tired of seeing it. Okay, guys, so this episode was really broken down into about 4 different groups, you know, 4 different times, which these are the episodes that I really like. And I'm glad that it was also extended to a 90-minute episode as well, because I think that if it wasn't, you know, there wouldn't be enough time for everything that they obviously wanted to include in it, which is, I mean, ultimately why they made it 90 minutes. So I'm not sure why I brought up that point. But anyway, this episode was focused on Rick and Aaron going on their run, you know, finishing their supply run that we left off with them last episode, with them, you know, sort of seeing supplies in a boathouse, you know, out in the water. They had to get across a lake that was filled with walkers. We also have Maggie, actually, who kicks off the episode in the hilltop. So we get back to the hilltop finally. That was the first time since we've seen, you know, the hilltop since episode 5. And then we also get to see the sanctuary, of course, with, you know, Daryl trying to make his escape ultimately. You know, we found out that he got a letter under the door. We didn't know who is the one, you know, who placed it. We had a few theories that it might have been Dwight or, you know, Jesus. That question was pretty much answered this episode. Not really a guarantee, you know, answer, but I think it's fairly obvious that it was Jesus. But with that being said, so yeah, there was Rick, of course, Rick and Aaron. There was Maggie at the hilltop, which again, she kicked off the episode, with basically sort of, I don't even know what to say. You know what I mean? Like, she sort of just was there, you know, she was on top of the wall, and Gregory ran by her and basically said, you know, don't get too cocky, you know, about you saving the day, you know, the other night, right? Don't get too cocky with that. And she basically retorts with, you know, don't let it bother you. And then she ultimately steals this apple because she's pregnant. And I thought that was freaking hilarious. I really did. But anyway, that's where the episode, you know, sort of kicks off there with Maggie. And then it sort of pushes off to, you know, the last group, which was Alexandria. Alexandria, of course, that's including Negan, you know, because he's there right now, of course. And he actually starts off with a shaving scene with Negan as well. So right off the bat, we get to see Negan, shaving his beard. And I thought that was a pretty cool, sequence from Maggie and Glenn, the results of Negan's wrath right there at the very beginning of the episode. And then sort of to Negan, shaving, sort of getting rid of all that, right? So to speak, in a way. But I thought that was cool. He's in Rick's bathroom. That sort of symbolizes, how he sort of controls Rick at this point. And I thought that was cool, And then we went on again to see Daryl escaping his cell. He was sort of trying to build up the courage to do so. But he ultimately did. He escaped his cell. He actually ended up in Dwight's bedroom or apartment, whatever you want to say. And he ended up pretty much trashing the place, changing into his clothes, which I thought was hilarious because it's just, Dwight changed into his clothes, with the vest and everything like that. So Daryl's sort of getting revenge with that, and he finally got to take off that burlap, stuff that he was wearing with the A on his chest. That was just annoying to see him, every single time with that gear on. It must have been gross, I'll tell you that much. But anyway, finally got the change into something new, which was Dwight's clothes. And he ultimately got out of there. And, when he got out of there, he ran into Jesus. And he actually ended up killing Fat Joey, the one that actually had Rick's gun. And basically, this was way into the episode too, when he did all this. So I'm just sort of going over each group and, what sort of happened with them. And that's what pretty much happened with Daryl, in a nutshell. He sort of escaped. Killed Fat Joey, took Rick's gun back, and then he got out of there with Jesus. And Jesus was the one waiting for him outside. So we can just assume that Jesus is the one that left the note under the door. You know what I mean? It's a pretty safe assumption. But again, I guess it wasn't technically guaranteed. Jesus didn't say, did you get my note or anything like that. But he was waiting for him outside. And he said, Daryl. And, he was just senselessly, beating Joey over the head with a metal pipe. And it was definitely a risky escape. He's tried to escape once before, and that was definitely a risk, that he, I think, had to build up the courage to take, but he ultimately did, because he needs to get out of there no matter what the cost. And just to remind you guys, as far as Maggie is concerned in the hilltop, as of right now, that was pretty much the only scene that she was in, except for, the end of the episode, which we will obviously get to when it, comes time. But that was pretty much it, for Maggie in the hilltop. Right there was her sort of opening up, the scene for this episode of The Walking Dead, and then it was her closing the scene as well. So just keep that in mind. We'll obviously get back to her very shortly. Actually, I'm wrong. Now that I think of it, they were in the trailer, and Sasha was telling Maggie that people think that she should run for president. She also got a pie, and she sort of just devoured that, a pregnant lady and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty funny. I thought that was sort of a comic relief moment, if you will. A lot of people in that community is sort of taking a liking to her, and that is a very good sign, because in the comic book, she becomes something for the hilltop. I'm not going to sit here and spoil it, but, it's definitely a lot of what they've been talking about in that scene, being president of Hilltop and stuff like that. And, Maggie was wondering where Jesus went. She ultimately lied to Maggie, saying that, he just left this morning, and Enid actually ended up confronting her about it, saying, he left last night, so why did you lie to Maggie? And she basically just explains to Enid that, she needs to do something. She needs to find out where Negan lives because she wants to take him down. And, they got into a bit of a discussion of, who's all dedicated to doing that. And she ultimately didn't want Maggie to find out about it because she would want to help as well. And she wants Maggie to basically stay safe, her and the baby. So that was the whole, plan there, with Sasha wanting to find Negan. And I thought that was cool. I really did. I thought that was definitely cool. She was sort of taking the initiative. But anyway, that is where the whole hilltop scene leaves off until the end of the episode. All right, so 2 groups down, 2 more to go. Actually 3, now that I think about it. We have Michonne as well. Michonne was very, very subtle in this episode. Not a whole lot went on with Michonne. She was basically just resuming what she did, in the last episode, which was taking that red-headed savior hostage and asking her to take her to Negan. She ultimately did. She took her to this big group of saviors. I'm not exactly sure what it was. I don't think that it was the saviors compound. I could be wrong, though. But anyway, she basically took Michonne there and said, that's all Negan. We're all Negan and everything like this. And Michonne just realized, that they have a lot more people than what they actually thought that they had. And that this fight is almost impossible but she still has to find a way to do it because they cannot live like this. So ultimately, she ends up killing the red-headed savior, due to her suggestion, to get the suppressor in the glove box, which I just thought was weird. But anyway, she killed the savior and then ultimately went back to Alexandria on her own after she realized that she wouldn't be able to get close to Negan, on her own. This is not something that I can do on my own. This is something that I need Rick for. This is something that I need my group for. We need to go to war. I can't do this on my own. This is not a solo job. And she realizes that, and she goes back to Alexandria. Again, just to remind you, that pretty much all took place across the entire episode, or like somewhat through the entire episode. It wasn't just one big scene, So I'm just sort of, again, breaking it down in terms of certain character storylines within this episode, I don't want to make it too confusing to you guys and, keep going back and forth like the episode did. If you want it that way, go watch the episode. Now, these last two groups, which was obviously Rick and Aaron, on their supply run and everything like that, and of course the Alexandria situation with Spencer and Negan, and of course Rosita had a big, hand in that as well. She played definitely a big part in this episode. And, that was definitely my favorite part of the episode, but Rick and Aaron's supply run, across the lake with having to get into a boat that has bullet holes all in it, and they were sinking in water and everything like that. I thought that was really cool. Ultimately, Spencer and Negan had to take the cake for me because that was just an iconic comic book moment that we obviously will talk about. But Rick and Aaron, essentially, to break it down in a nutshell, again, there was a lot more to it than this, but they went across, the lake, and there was a lot of cool moments where they almost, got really close calls with walkers, with like Aaron falling into the water, and he almost got, obviously, destroyed by walkers, which was actually the first close encounter with a walker that we've had in quite some time with one of our characters, because they've sort of taken a back seat, as we all know. Walkers are not really the danger anymore. But this was sort of, I think, put in there to remind us, that they can definitely be a danger to us. And I thought it was a really cool moment because there was a lot of cool, special effects there that went on with the water and stuff like that. And of course, when they got to the boathouse, I thought there was a couple of cool moments there with the guy, whoever it was that had the boathouse, actually had a note that said, like, even though you won, you still lose, because he had no ammunition for any of the guns that he had. And anyway, long story short, they got to the boathouse finally and, barely survived, sort of crawling onto the boathouse at the end. And then ultimately got all the supplies and pretty well got out of there in one piece. But at the end of that scene where they were sort of driving away with all their supplies and stuff like that, a mysterious figure basically in the woods, which I still don't really know who it is. I can't even really make a prediction at this point. Because as far as I remember, as far as I know, there's not really anybody in the comic book that really fits that description. There's not really, any character in the comic book that really makes an appearance like this. And it was sort of just showing their boots, I don't know who it was, but whoever it was watching Rick and Aaron. And at the end of the episode, actually after the credits, they're caught again sneaking up to Alexandria, sneaking up to the Alexandria gates and watching Gabriel on the wall, sort of standing guard there on the wall, taking his shift, is what I can assume he was doing. But we see this person sneaking up again, only the boots. We don't have a face. We don't have any clue, as to who it is yet. If you guys know, if there is something in the comic book that I might have missed, or maybe I've just forgotten because it's been a while since, obviously volume 19-ish, definitely let me know in the comment section below. If you have any idea on who this character that is definitely a spy, I want to say, is. So let me know in the comment section below if I might have missed something. That all brings me to my favorite part of the episode, the iconic comic book scene from volume 19 of The Walking Dead entitled March to War. This scene was absolutely insane. I thought that it was great. I thought that was really well done. Everything in Alexandria, that happened, sort of irrelevant. There's a lot of run-ins with Rosita. She was talking to Gabriel at one point about, wanting to kill Negan. Gabriel sort of talked her down from it and said that, we have to take an approach to this that would be smart. We do want to fight. I want to fight. I want to take him down. But we can't just, we can't go off half-cocked, And that's something that Rosita, I think, takes into consideration. And he ultimately talked her down from it. So she didn't end up wanting to kill him. But in the long run, what happened is Negan, you know, basically being Negan, spending time with Carl and Judith and, of course, Olivia, you know, at Rick's house and everything like this. Just really eerie, you know, sort of vibes to that. He was sort of taking Rick's place in a way. And again, very eerie. But ultimately, Spencer ended up introducing himself to Negan, and ultimately Sid's, you know, trying to make best friends with him. You know, he ended up having a glass of lemonade with them. They really knocked it off, you know. They definitely hit it off right off the bat. But the thing is, Spencer brought up the fact that he doesn't think that Rick is a good leader, and he thinks that he could be a better one. You know, he basically explained to Negan that his mother was actually the owner, you know, the original leader of Alexandria, you know, until Rick got there. And he basically is blaming Rick, you know, for essentially ruining everything. You know, a lot of his friends died after Rick got there. And this is one side to Negan that I like. You know what I mean? Like, he's... I don't even know how to put this, you know what I mean? Because he's sort of loyal to Rick in a way. You know, he sort of put it in a way that really explained, you know, how he sort of does things. You know, he bent over backwards for him. He explained that to Rick earlier. And I sort of agree with him, you know, in a certain way, I guess. Again, I don't know how to say this without coming across like a absolute fanboy of Negan and an absolute asshole myself. But he's definitely, I want to say, somewhat reasonable. But at the same time, that could definitely get a lot of hate from me. But anyway, what I'm saying, you know, my point that I'm trying to get across is that Spencer, one of Rick's own people, was basically trying to turn on Rick and get Negan to kill Rick. And, of course, this all took place in the comic book as well. And one of the iconic comic book lines, you know, when they were playing pool and everything like that, I thought it was great. I thought that was a great addition to the episode right there. Because actually in the comic book, they played pool, or he played pool afterwards, you know, after all this happened. But he was playing pool with Spencer, you know, in the TV show. And then Spencer was having that talk with him, saying that basically, you know, I can be a better leader than Rick. You know, Rick doesn't have this history, you know, of playing well with others and everything like this. And Negan ultimately said to Spencer, you know, Rick's really swallowing all of his pride right now. He's swallowing the fact that he can't be leader anymore. He's swallowing the fact that, you know, he has to bow down to me and get me supplies. He's swallowing all that so that he can keep you people alive. He's out there right now scavenging for me, busting his ass, and getting the supplies that I require. And he basically says, you know, that takes guts. And then he says to Spencer, you know, if you want it to really take over, why bring this to me? Why not just kill Rick yourself and then take the hell over? In the comic book, it was take the fuck over, but hopefully that will be in the Blu-ray alternate scenes. I hope that that's definitely a thing, you know, when that Blu-ray comes out. But he basically says, you know, why not take the hell over? And he basically explains to Spencer, oh, I know why. It's because you have no guts. And then he absolutely decks Spencer by plunging a knife into his stomach, slicing it wide open, and all of his guts, all of his intestines, everything come out of his stomach area. I don't even know what to call that. Abdomen, I guess. And, you know, everything spills out onto the ground. Spencer ultimately, you know, kneels down onto his knees and collapses to the ground. And then Negan says his famous line again. He has a bunch of them, you know. He basically says, oh, how silly of me. There they are. Obviously referring to his guts. So, very iconic comic book scene there. I thought that it was great. I thought that was really well done. And ultimately, this was the start to a breaking point with Rick. You know, a realization for Rick. And in a way, I'm glad that it happened because Spencer was an asshole anyway. He wanted to turn on Rick and everything like that. So I'm glad that it happened. There's one downside to it, though, which was Olivia. So ultimately, after he killed Spencer, I know that I'm talking for a while, too. I apologize. But after he killed Spencer, what the hell is her name? Rosita. I could not think of that. Rosita ultimately tried to kill Negan. You know, she sort of snapped. She pulled out her gun, you know, with the one bullet that she made, or that Eugene made in this case, and tried to shoot Negan. This happened in the comic book. You know, Carl tried to shoot Negan and actually hit Lucille. But in the TV show, it was Rosita that tried to shoot Negan, and she hit Lucille. So the only reason Negan didn't die is because he had his bat up like this, and he got pissed off, to say the least. He got pissed off, ultimately was demanding, who made this bullet, because he noticed that it had crimps in it that were homemade and stuff like that. So he ultimately demanded who made this bullet. No one was coming forward, and he just wanted to prove a point real quick. Even after killing Spencer, he said to one of his, goons, minions, one of his people there, to just, kill somebody, because no one was telling him the truth. Rosita kept saying that it was her, and he can see right through that. It wasn't her, and he knows that. So he basically said to one of his people to kill somebody, just kill somebody. What did she do? She turned around and shot Olivia dead. I believe like in the eye, maybe the forehead, somewhere in the head. But anyway, she's dead as shit. And so that's where Olivia's story ends. Last thing she did was get lemonade. And I don't know. Negan even referenced, saying that, I wouldn't have been the one to kill Olivia. She wouldn't have been the one I chose, but ultimately, that's what happens, and, that's what happened, rather, and I guess we have to deal with it. So that's what happened there. So ultimately, I want to say Rosita got Olivia killed, which in turn she sort of did, but at the same time, if him killing Spencer, if he didn't do that, then Rosita wouldn't have snapped. She would have kept her cool. But at the same time, if he didn't kill Spencer, Rick wouldn't have got his mojo back, so to speak, which leads me to the ending scenes of this episode, which were the greatest of all time. Okay, so Rick makes it back from his run with Aaron after Aaron getting beat the hell up at the gate of Alexandria. It was just a stupid reason, he brought the note back and stuff like that. It was dumb. You guys can watch it, not really a big detail there, but he basically had to witness, Aaron get his ass kicked, again. And he ultimately went up to Negan after Negan, killed Spencer, and after Olivia died and all of this. And he basically said to Negan, we had a deal. And then he basically told Negan, to take his shit was at the gate, and just to get out. And he talked to Negan in that tone too. And Negan sort of understood, why he did that, because he just wants him gone at this point. And Negan basically says, I will leave, but I want to know who made this bullet. Ultimately, Eugene gave himself up and actually ended up going with the Saviors and with Negan, probably to make bullets for them. So that's definitely an unfortunate, consequence, what happened there as well. But again, if all this didn't happen, as horrible as it all was, Rick would not have got his mojo back. And what I mean by that is because in the next scene or so, basically Rick and everybody, his whole group, being Rosita, obviously himself, Carl, we have Michonne, Tara is there as well. They all basically walk to the hilltop. We see Maggie right off the bat looking on the top of the fence again, the top of the hilltop walls, and basically sees them coming, from a distance, and she gets all excited, she gets all happy. The doors to the hilltop end up opening, and Rick and everybody walk through. Rick hugs Maggie right off the bat, asks her, if the baby was okay and everything like this, and he basically explains to her, I wasn't willing to listen before, but you were right. We do have to fight. And that's obviously leading back to the episode, the season premiere, rather, of season 7, where at the end of it all, Maggie said, you have to go home. You have to get ready for a fight. You have to get ready to fight him. And now Rick is willing to listen. But with that being said, again, another emotional moment. As we know, Daryl did escape the Savior's compound with Jesus. Where's Jesus from? The hilltop. Meaning, Daryl went back to the hilltop. And he walked basically right into scene right there at the end with Rick. He was there with Rick. He saw Rick. And a very nice hug took place, is a way to put it. I thought that it was a great, ending to the episode. That I thought it was amazing. The whole group is back together. Daryl's there. Jesus is there, of course. They're all reunited. And again, it was a very emotional moment, especially with, him hugging Daryl, right off the bat. And of course, Daryl ended up giving Rick his python back. He put it in the holster. and then they ultimately all walked off into the hilltop, the house thing. I don't know, the complex, whatever you want to call it. But that's when they walked off into there, and that was the end of the episode. So ultimately, what we can get from it, the whole group is back together now, and you know, I mean that's pretty much it. You know, they're ready to fight, they're ready to get going. And I can't wait. You know what I mean? I can't wait. A lot of things in this episode were definitely March to War, you know, with the death of Spencer and everything like that, was definitely March to War vibey. And I think that's great because you know what comes after March to War? All Out War. And I can't fucking wait. I'm super hyped, to say the least. Okay? I am super hyped. Yeah, I can't wait, man. I can't wait, especially with, you know, Richard from the Kingdom feeling so ready for a fight. You know, he was trying to explain to Carol and Morgan earlier in the episode too, you know, that he wanted them to convince Ezekiel to strike first. But with that being said, you know, they didn't want any part of it. Morgan doesn't want to fight. Carol just wants to be left alone. And ultimately, I think that it's good. You know, Richard was sort of frustrated with them that they wouldn't do it for him. But at the same time, in the promo for the next episode of The Walking Dead, we get to see Jesus say to Rick, I think it's time to introduce you to King Ezekiel. And also in the promo, you know, we'll obviously go over this more in like episode predictions and discussions and stuff like that if you guys want to see them. But he basically ends up meeting Ezekiel. We get to see Rick and Ezekiel together. I can't talk, you know what I mean? I'm too excited. I really am. I'm fumbling my words, but with that being said, that is the end of the episode, guys. I thought that was a really solid episode. If I had to rate it, I would say literally 10 out of 10. You know, 5 out of 5 if it was a 5 scale. I don't know. You know what I mean? I thought that was a really great episode. 90-minute mid-season finale. Definitely worth the wait, you know, for something like that, you know, to come up. That was definitely a lot of production budget there, you know, especially with the whole death of Spencer. I thought that it was such an iconic, you know, comic moment, and I'm glad that it definitely made it into the mid-season finale instead of maybe the premiere, which would have got us waiting until, you know, February 12th, which is the return date, by the way. Another thing, you know, I kind of thought that it was sad that we didn't get to see, you know, Ezekiel, but we do get to see him for sure when The Walking Dead returns in February. Anyway, that's it, everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. I know that it was probably really confusing to sort of follow along, you know what I mean? But go watch the episode. With that being said, those are my thoughts on it. I mean, I loved it, you know what I mean? It was sort of a recap and a review. I think that it was a great episode. I really do. I think that they put a lot of effort into this one. I love the whole group being back together, especially with Rick and Daryl and everything like that. That was a really emotional moment, you know, even for me, you know what I mean? I'm not ashamed to admit it. It was definitely an emotional moment. I think it was for a lot of people, you know. A lot of bad came in this episode with the death of Olivia. You could say Spencer, but I mean, who really cared? You know what I mean? Who really cared? Go Negan with that one. But with the death, you know, of Olivia, that was definitely horrible. And the taking of Eugene, so they don't really have, you know, a bullet-making specialist anymore in the Alexandrians' custody. But with all that being said, you know, with all that done, that finally sort of sent Rick over the edge, you know, in a way. That's how you could say it. It sent Rick over the edge, and it made him realize that they can't live like this. You know, he just keeps killing their people left and right, no matter what. He killed Spencer. He killed Olivia. You know, he's taken Eugene. They can't live like this. You know, they can't protect him. There's no real truce. And I think that, you know, once they combined Alexandria and the Hilltop with the perseverance, especially of Richard and the Kingdom, if Ezekiel decides to hop on board, which, spoiler alert, he will, I think that they're going to have a very good chance. You know, I'm not going to spoil anything, but things are looking up. Things are looking good, guys. Anyway, that is everybody. Thank you all so much for watching. This was the last episode review that you guys will see until The Walking Dead comes back in this February. I can't wait for it, guys. I really can't. I have no idea what the next episode of The Walking Dead is called. There's no, you know, title or anything like that to it. But there is a sneak peek and there is a promo out there for you guys. I will leave a link in the description below for you guys to watch the promo and the sneak peek for the next episode of The Walking Dead, which will be airing on February the 12th. and I will see you guys back with predictions for that episode. Let's see. Let's just calculate real quick. I'm scrolling through my calendar. So predictions will be back on February the 9th. That will be a Thursday, okay? So that's when predictions will be back for The Walking Dead. That will be Season 7, Episode 9. Still have no idea what it's called. So I'll see you guys then, and take care, everybody. Bye.